The sleek black Mercedes screeched to a halt, sending water spraying across the empty street. Inside, Richard Thompson checked his Rolex, 10 minutes until the biggest meeting of his career. But something made him pause. Through the curtain of rain, he spotted a hunched figure under a store awning. A woman in tattered clothes cradling something in her arms. He should drive on. The Johnson deal was worth millions. Yet he couldn't tear his eyes away from the bundle in her arms. A tiny hand emerged from the wet blankets, reaching toward the sky. Then he saw the baby's eyes, a striking shade of gold he'd never seen before. Richard's hands trembled on the steering wheel. Those eyes, they were exactly like his late daughter's. The same unique color doctors had said was impossible. His foot moved to the gas pedal, but the memory of those golden eyes held him frozen. Thunder cracked overhead. The woman pulled the baby closer, trying to shield it from the wind. Without thinking, Richard opened his door. The cold rain soaked through his $5,000 suit as he stepped out. He'd missed the meeting. The deal would collapse. His board would be furious. But as he walked toward the woman and child, Richard felt something he hadn't experienced in years, a certainty that he was exactly where he needed to be. The baby turned those impossible golden eyes toward him. And in that moment, on a rain-soaked street corner, Richard Thompson's carefully ordered world began to unravel in ways he could never have imagined. Richard's childhood memories flooded back as he drove home that rainy evening. The woman and baby were safely in his guest house now, but his mind wandered to darker times. Growing up in the rundown Cherry Lane projects, he'd known hunger too well. His mother worked 3 jobs, coming home with aching feet but never complaining. His father had died when Richard was just 10, leaving them struggling to survive. He remembered the shame of wearing second-hand clothes, of counting every penny, of watching his mother skip meals so he could eat. But she'd always told him, "Education is your ticket out, son." Those words became his lifeline. While other kids played after school, he studied in the library until closing time. The librarian, Mrs. Chen, would sometimes slip him a sandwich, understanding hunger when she saw it. By 16, he was working 2 jobs while maintaining top grades. His mother's proud smile when he received a full scholarship to business school still warmed his heart. But fate had other plans. During his freshman year, she was diagnosed with cancer. The medical bills drained their meager savings. He wanted to quit school to care for her, but she made him promise to finish. "Don't let poverty win, Richard," she'd whispered in her final days. "But remember where you came from. Money isn't everything, it's what you do with it that matters." Those words haunted him as he built his empire. Each success felt hollow without her to share it. Then he met Linda, and for a while, life felt complete again. Their daughter Sarah was born with those same mysterious golden eyes. But happiness proved fleeting. A tragic car accident took them both, leaving him alone with his wealth and grief. Now, staring out his study window at the guest house where the homeless woman and her golden-eyed baby slept, Richard felt an odd sense of purpose stirring. Perhaps his mother's final wisdom was about to make sense in ways he never expected. Thunder rumbled in the distance as he reached for his phone. Tomorrow would bring questions and decisions, but tonight, for the first time in years, Richard Thompson felt truly awake. The woman's name was Dr. Helen Chen, though she hadn't used that title in years. Huddled in Richard's guest house, she told her story between sips of hot tea. She'd been a brilliant geneticist, leading breakthrough research on rare genetic conditions at a prestigious lab. Her work focused on unusual eye colors linked to enhanced immune systems, like her baby's golden eyes. Then came the explosion. A late night in the lab, a faulty gas line, and everything changed. 2 colleagues died. Though cleared of wrongdoing, the guilt consumed her. She resigned, refusing to step into another lab. Her marriage crumbled under the weight of her depression. When her husband left, she spiraled further, eventually losing their house. Little Michael was born in a shelter 6 months ago. His strange golden eyes immediately caught attention. Hospital staff wanted to run tests, but Helen fled, protective of her son. She'd seen too many children become lab subjects. Living on the streets was better than risking her baby becoming an experiment. "The other homeless folks protect us," she explained, stroking Michael's hair. "They understand what it's like to be seen as less than human." Richard listened, recognizing the shadow of grief in her eyes. But what shocked him most was her next revelation: Michael's condition matched his late daughter Sarah's exactly. The same golden eyes, the same immunity to common illnesses. "It's incredibly rare," Helen explained. 1 in several million. The genetic sequence could hold keys to treating numerous diseases. But my research was lost in the explosion. As Michael drifted to sleep, Helen's exhaustion showed. But there was still strength in her voice when she spoke. "I won't let anyone treat him like a specimen. He's my son, not a science project." Richard nodded, understanding both her fear and her determination. Tomorrow, he would make her an offer that would change both their lives. But tonight, watching mother and child sleep peacefully, he realized some things were worth more than any business deal. Morning light filtered through the window as Michael played with wooden blocks on the guest house floor. In just a few weeks, the baby who'd stopped Richard in the rain had changed everything. Blood tests confirmed what Helen suspected: Michael's genetic makeup was extraordinary. But more shocking was the discovery in Richard's old files. His daughter Sarah's medical records showed identical markers. Richard cancelled his rescheduled meeting with Johnson Industries. Instead, he made Helen an offer: state-of-the-art lab facilities, complete research freedom, and protection for Michael. No testing on the baby, just studying his genetic data to help others. Helen hesitated, memories of the explosion still fresh. But seeing the determination in Richard's eyes, she agreed. News of their partnership spread quickly through the medical research community. Investors called daily, sensing potential profits. But Richard remembered his mother's words about using money wisely. He structured the project as a non-profit, focused on developing affordable treatments. Helen came alive in the new lab. Her old confidence returned as she mapped the unique genetic sequence she and Richard now shared through their children. The golden eyes weren't just beautiful, they indicated a natural immunity to several deadly diseases. Understanding this could save millions. Late one evening, Richard found Helen still working. Michael slept peacefully in a playpen beside her desk. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For seeing us as people that day, not problems to avoid." Richard watched Michael's steady breathing, remembering another golden-eyed child. "Sometimes the best business decisions," he replied, "have nothing to do with business at all." Outside, the city lights twinkled like stars. In a twist of fate, two broken people had found purpose in their pain. But as their research progressed, neither suspected the challenges ahead, or the powerful interests watching their every move. Working together transformed Richard and Helen's lives. Their research lab buzzed with energy as breakthroughs emerged. Helen's expertise combined with Richard's resources created hope for millions. Michael thrived, surrounded by love and purpose. But success bred danger. One morning, Helen discovered their security system disabled. Files were missing, crucial research data stolen. Security footage revealed men in dark suits, professional thieves hired by rival companies. They'd taken everything about Michael's unique genetics. Richard's old business instincts kicked in. He hired top security, installed new systems. But Helen saw deeper trouble. "They'll try to patent this," she warned. "Turn it into expensive treatments only the rich can afford." The next weeks brought more threats. Anonymous emails demanded they sell their research. A fire started in the lab, clearly arson. Richard received calls from board members, pressuring him to commercialize the discoveries. But watching Michael play, they found strength. The baby's golden eyes reminded them why they'd started, not for profit, but to help others. They worked harder, rebuilding their research from Helen's memory and backup notes. Late one night, Helen made a crucial breakthrough. The genetic sequence could be replicated synthetically. No need for testing on children like Michael. Treatments could be produced cheaply, helping everyone, not just the wealthy. As dawn broke, Richard and Helen shared tired but triumphant smiles. Their path forward was clear, but they knew the real fight was just beginning. The choice between profit and purpose loomed ahead, testing their resolve in ways they never expected. The boardroom was tense as Richard and Helen faced the investors. Their breakthrough had made headlines, a potential cure for multiple diseases, all from studying Michael's unique genetics. But now came the hard choice. Corporate buyers offered billions for exclusive rights. Their arguments were tempting: think of the profit potential. The shareholders' interests. The market demands premium pricing. Richard glanced at Helen, seeing his own resolve mirrored in her eyes. They thought of the homeless folks who'd protected Helen and Michael, of Richard's mother skipping meals to buy his schoolbooks, of all those who couldn't afford expensive treatments. No, Richard stated firmly. This discovery belongs to everyone. Instead, they revealed their plan. A global health initiative, partnering with WHO. Generic manufacturing to keep costs low. Training programs for doctors in developing countries. The corporate representatives left angry, but Richard and Helen stood firm. That evening, watching Michael play, Helen noticed tears in Richard's eyes. "My mother would be proud," he whispered. Finally using money the right way. The lab hummed with renewed purpose. Their choice meant slower progress, less funding. But as letters poured in from grateful families worldwide, they knew it was worth it. Sometimes the biggest profits couldn't be measured in dollars. The final chapter unfolded in a sunlit hospital ward. 5 years had passed since that rainy day. The ward was filled with children receiving treatments developed from Michael's genetics, all free of charge. Richard watched Helen explaining science to young patients. She'd transformed from the scared woman under the awning into a respected doctor again. Michael, now a lively 5-year-old, played with other golden-eyed children, a sign their treatment was working. Their foundation had grown beyond expectations. Thousands of doctors trained in their methods. Millions received affordable care. Other wealthy companies followed their model, choosing purpose over profit. That evening, they visited Richard's mother's grave. Michael placed flowers while Richard shared their success. "You were right, Mom," he whispered. "Money isn't everything." Later, watching the sunset from his office, Richard reflected on life's strange turns. A missed meeting had led to saved lives. A beggar had become a pioneering scientist. A baby's golden eyes had changed the world. Helen appeared with Michael. "Ready to go home?" she asked. Richard smiled, remembering the lonely mansion that now echoed with family sounds. Sometimes the richest rewards came from giving rather than gaining. As they left, Michael's golden eyes sparkled with joy, a reminder that sometimes life's greatest blessings arrive in unexpected moments, wrapped in rain-soaked blankets on seemingly ordinary days.